All right, today we're going to go ahead and get into section 6.3 notes, equations of circles. All right, so our goal today is going to be able to write the equation of a circle either from a word problem or from a graph. And then our other goal for today is to work backwards and be able to find the center and the radius when we're given the equation. So before we get started, let's go ahead and recall the distance formula because we will be using it occasionally when we go to solve these. So remember, our distance formula is the square root. All right, we're going to take x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. Now, I don't do the x2 and the x1, etc. Just remember, stay with a pattern. All right, so if you start with 1x, you must start with the y when you do those. All right, so stay with a consistent pattern to plug them in and then clean it up. Sometimes you'll get a decimal, sometimes you'll get a whole number. All right, so before we get into writing equations of circles, let's go ahead and do two problems. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label my x and y. My x and y. All right, I'm going to stay with a pattern, and I'm going to start with whatever x I start with, I must start with that y. So I'm going to go in order. I have 6 minus in my equation, and now be careful, I have a negative 3 for my other x, a plus sign in between, and then I'm going to start with that y, 2 minus a negative 2, and I'm going to square it. All right, now, you'll notice we have a couple minuses, so we're going to go ahead and clean those up. All right, let's go ahead and continue. 6 minus a minus 3, remember that's going to change to a plus, so 6 plus 3 tells me 9 squared, plus 2 minus a minus 2 will become 2 plus 2, so that turns into 4 squared. All right, let's go ahead and clean those up. Now let's turn those to numbers. So we know 8 squared is 81, plus 4 squared gives us 16. If I add 81 plus 16, that gives me the square root of 97. And if I put in the square root of 97, I get 9.85, so we're going to call it 9.9. All right, let's go ahead and do another one. I'm going to label my x, y. I'm going to stay with my pattern. All right, let's go ahead and plug this into our distance formula. So let's do x minus x, so 4 minus 0 squared, plus, let's start with that y since we started with the x there, 5 minus, and it's just a 2 squared. Let's clean it up. 4 minus 0 will give us 4 squared, plus 5 minus 2 will give us 3 squared. 4 squared is 16. 16 plus 3 squared is 9. So 16 plus 9 will tell us the square root of 25. And we know that is a perfect square, so that will give us 5 for our answer. All right, so the first part of today is just to see if you can do the distance formula. All right, now we're going to start to put this together and find the equation of a circle. All right, so that was a quick distance review. Here we go. Let's go ahead and look at the circle. All right, so here's the deal. Today we're going to be focusing on the equation of a circle. All right, and this right here is the equation of the circle. Now you'll notice it's a crazy equation. We are actually going to look at it down below in a second, but this is one way to look at the equation of a circle. Now, here's how this works. When we go to write the equation of a circle, we need two things. All right, the two things that we need is we need the center and we need the radius. If we have these two things, we can write the equation of a circle. Now, the equation of a circle is right here, and you'll notice the center is listed as h comma k. So it's still an ordered pair. It's like x comma y, except we're going to look at it as h comma k. The first letter is the h, the second letter in the ordered pair is the k. When we go to plug it into the equation of a circle over here, we're going to be plugging in a number here where the h is, and we're going to keep the x in the equation. We're going to plug a number here where the k is, and we're going to keep the y in the equation. And then we're going to plug in our radius into the r. All right? When we clean it up, the only thing we're going to clean up is the r squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down and look at an example. And real quick, let me just write the equation of a circle on this page so that we have it and don't have to look back. We have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's the equation of our circle. Now remember, we need two things to write the equation of a circle. We need the center and we need the radius. All right, once we have the center and the radius, the rest is just going back and plugging it in and then solving. All right, what I mean by solving is cleaning it up. So let's go ahead and look at this. Ready? My center is 2, 2, so remember we're plugging in a number for the h, the k, and the r squared. Now, remember our center is technically h and k, so I'm going to put an h above this one and a k above the second one. I am now going to plug this into the equation of my circle. So x minus, and now let's put in our h, which was 2, and then I square it, plus, let's copy the y, minus, and now let's put in k. K was a 2, and then I'm going to square it. And that should equal our radius, and in this problem, r is 4, so I'm going to put in 4 squared. All right, to write my final answer for the equation of the circle, I need to make sure there's no double negatives in my parentheses. If there aren't, I just copy them. We're not going to do anything. We don't FOIL. We leave it exactly how we see it. Plus y minus 2 squared. And we need to clean up this 4 squared. We know 4 squared gives us 16. So the equation of a circle is right here in blue. Now you'll notice the opposite of negative 2 would have given us positive 2 for our center. The opposite of negative 2 would have given us positive 2. You'll notice our equation has r squared here, so if I square root the 16, it'll give us our radius of 4. So we can work backwards too. Let's try another. Write the equation of the circle given the center and the radius, so we have both things that we need to write the equation. Remember, our center is h comma k, and our radius, r, will equal 8 in this one. Let's go ahead and begin to plug it in. X minus 0 squared plus y minus a negative 3 squared equals r squared, so 8 squared. Now we're going to go ahead and clean this up, and what I mean by clean it up is any double negatives we're going to rewrite, and when we have anything minus 0, the 0 disappears. So we're left with x squared plus, I have y minus a minus 3, so I'm going to rewrite that as a positive 3 squared equals 8 squared is 64. We can change that to a number. This right here is the equation of our circle. All right, so if they give us the center and the radius, we're just going to plug it into the formula and then clean it up. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and look at some examples of what happens when they don't give us the center or they don't give us the radius, one of the two. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to first, real quick, write the equation of the circle up on top so that we have it. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Now, you'll notice before we always said we need two things. We need the center and a radius to go ahead and write the equation of a circle. I notice we have the center. All right, the one thing I notice is that we do not have the radius. So I'm going to do the distance formula first to find the radius. So I'm going to do some side work to find the radius. And in order to find the radius, I'm going to have to do the distance formula. So to find my radius, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to do the distance formula right here with these ordered pairs to find out what r is first. After I get r, I can go back and take my center and radius and write the equation. All right, I'm going to do 6 minus 1, my x minus x squared, plus 4 minus, now be careful, it's a negative 8 squared. Okay, now let's go ahead and write what that'll turn into. Nope, I don't want to do that. Let's put that back. There we go. All right, let's clean this up. So 6 minus 1 gives us 5 squared. 4 minus a minus 8 gives us 12 squared. Well, 5 squared is 25. And 12 squared is 144. All right, that gives us the square root of 169, which tells us 13. Now, that's just our radius, so I'm going to put a little r next to the 13. Okay, now, let's take our radius. Our radius is right here, and let's take our center, h, comma, k, and let's write the equation of the circle and plug it into our equation up above. So here we go. X minus 1 squared plus y minus, and now I'm going to put in a negative 8, so we're plugging in h and k into our equation, equals r squared. R was 13 squared. Last, I'm going to clean up any double negatives, and I'm going to square anything I can. So x minus 1 squared will copy. Y minus a minus 8 becomes y plus 8 squared, and then 13 squared is 169. You'll notice in your equation of the circle, this number at the end, 169, is basically the number that you got underneath your square root symbol. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and try one more problem. I'll keep that equation up there. We can come back and look at it. We've got our equation of a circle right here, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Remember, we need two things to write the equation of a circle. We need the center and we need the radius. All right, so in example 2b, you'll notice we do not have the radius. So we are going to do some side work first to find r, the radius. We're going to have to do the distance formula again to find the radius. So here we go. Let's plug it into our distance formula first. 2 minus 2, so x minus x squared plus 3 minus a negative 1 squared. Okay, 2 minus 2 is 0 squared. Plus 3 minus a minus 1 is 4 squared. All right, now that'll turn into 0 plus 16. Well, we know that 0 plus 16 gives us the square root of 16, and the square root of 16 will tell us that r is 4, so we found our radius. Now go back and find your center, and let's label that h and k. And let's take h, k, and r and plug it into our formula and then clean up whatever we need to. All right, so here we go. X minus h was 2 squared, plus y minus k was negative 1 squared, equals r squared, and r was 4. Last, clean up any double negatives. X minus 2 squared plus y minus a minus will change to a positive, and then 4 squared equals 16, so here is the equation of our circle. All right, so the hardest problems are when they don't give us the radius and we must find the distance first. All right, that's the first part about today. Let's go ahead and look at what happens when we have to work backwards. All right, now remember our equation of the circle is technically x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Now, to find the center, we would take the opposite of what's in the parenthesis and write those down first. To find the radius, we need to go ahead and take whatever's in the spot of r squared and we need to square root it to find the radius. So, here we go. There is nothing inside a parenthesis. If there's no number inside the parenthesis, we use 0 for it. There's nothing inside a parenthesis here, so we use 0 for that one. So our center is at 0, 0. You'll notice the 16 is in the spot of the r squared. The 16 is in the spot of the r squared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that r squared and I'm going to square root it because it's like saying that it's in the spot of r squared. So if we want to find what r is, we would square root it, and that would tell us that the radius is 4. So our center is 0, 0. Our radius is 4. All right, let's try another one. Letter B, let's identify the center. There's no parentheses, so I'm at 0. There's no parentheses, so I'm at 0, 0 for my center. 81 is in the spot of r squared, so if I take 81 and I square root it, it's going to give me 9. Now, if it asks us to draw these two, here's how we would draw it. Your first circle has a center at 0, 0, so we'll put a dot right at 0, 0. The radius is 4, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 up, and then we're going to go back to the center. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 right, and then we're going to go back to the center. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and then we're going to go back to the center. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 left, and now the circle will be these points that come around the center. So here's our first circle. For our second circle, our center was at 0, 0, so we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to count 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's the last one. I'm going to go back to the center. I'm going to count 9 to the right. I'm going to go back to the center. I'm going to count 9 down. I'm going to go back to the center. I'm going to count 9 to the left. So my radius was 9 for each part. And then I'm going to draw a big circle through those points. All right, so there's an example of how to sketch your circle. Graph the center first, then go back and count your radius up, down, left, and right, and then draw a circle. All right, let's go ahead and do 2 more, and this time let's look at what happens when we have parentheses. Remember our equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. To find the center, we're going to take opposite of what's in the parentheses. So opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. Opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. The 9 is in the spot of the r squared, so the square root of 9 will tell me the radius is 3. Now, if we were graphing this, we would graph the point 3, negative 4, so 1, 2, 3 right, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and we would graph a point. My radius is 3, so from that point I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 right. I'm going to go back to my center point. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 up. I'm going to go back to my center point. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 left. Go back to your center, 1, 2, 3 down. And now I'm going to graph my circle around it. All right, let's do one more of those examples. To find the center, I'm going to take the opposite of what's in the parenthesis. Opposite of positive 1 will give me negative 1. Opposite of negative 2 will give me positive 2 for my center. The 36 was in the spot of r squared, so square root of 36 will tell me that r was 6. To graph it, I'm going to go left 1 and up 2 and graph my center. And now from that point, I'm going to count 6 to the right, 6 up, 6 left, and 6 down and make a point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go back to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go back to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go back to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go back to the center. Yeah, we don't need to go back to the center anymore. I just like to say it. Here we go. Go ahead and graph your circle around the center. And we have sketched a graph of the circle. All right, so that's working backwards to find the center. Take the opposite of what's in the parentheses. If there's no parentheses, we'll use zeros. And then to find r, we need to square root the r squared at the end to find what radius is. All right, let's go ahead and do an example of each type of problem. Make sure we're all good, and then we'll go ahead and get into some practice. Up on top, I'm just going to list the equation of a circle so that we have it for the whole page. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared has to be equal to r squared. All right, remember, here we go. 1a, write the equation of a circle. So I'm going to try to write the equation so that it looks like my formula. Remember, we need two things. We need a center and a radius, and they gave us both of those, so we are ready to go. Let's plug it in. X minus a negative 5 squared. Remember, this is h, this is k. Plus y minus a negative 6 squared should be equal to 9 squared. All right, last, rewrite it and clean it up. That'll be x plus 5, because I had double negatives, plus y plus 6, because I had double negatives, and I'll square it. And I know 9 squared gives us 81. This right here is the equation of our circle. All right, here we go. You'll notice example B does not give us the radius. It gives us a center, but we don't have the radius. So we are first going to do the distance formula to find the radius. So let's do the distance formula with those points. Negative 2 minus 2, x minus x squared, plus, let's do our y and stay with the same pattern. Be careful, it's a negative 4, so make sure you plug it in correctly. Let's clean that up. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4 squared, plus negative 1 minus a minus 4 will give us a 3 squared. And now let's keep cleaning that up. Remember, negative 4 squared will always change to a positive. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. 16 plus 9 tells us square root of 25, which tells me that r is 5 to start. All right, now go back to your center. We have h and k, and now let's plug these into our formula. All right, so x minus h was 2, squared, plus y minus a negative 4 for k, squared, is equal to 5 squared, our radius squared. Clean up any double negatives. X minus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared is equal to 25. All right, so a lot of algebra involved, but plugging it into the formula and then solving. All right, our last two, we're going to work backwards to find the center and the radius, and then we're going to graph a picture. So there are no parentheses, so our center, remember no parentheses, we're going to use 0 and 0. So my center is 0 and 0. Remember, to find the radius, I'm going to take square root of 64, which tells me that the radius is equal to 8. Now remember, to graph it, I'm going to go to 0, 0 and graph my center. I'm going to count 8 to the right and graph a point. I'm going to go back to the center, graph 8 to the up. Go back to the center, graph 8 to the left. Go back to the center, graph 8 down, and now draw a circle with the points around your center. All right, last one, and then we'll get into some practice. Remember, to find the center, we want the opposite of what's in the parentheses. So my center will be opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. Opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. So we find our center by taking the opposites. Remember, to find the radius, I'm going to take the square root of 16, which will tell me that r is equal to 4. Now let's graph it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, and up 2 is our center. And now remember, we're going to count 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back to the center, count 1, 2, 3, 4 up. Go back to the center, count 1, 2, 3, 4 left. Go back to the center, count 1, 2, 3, 4 down. And now graph your circle around the center. All right, so really 3 things today, writing the equation of a circle. Remember, we need the center and the radius. If we don't have the radius, we must do the distance first. And then working backwards, take the opposite in the parentheses to find the center, and then square root the r squared to find the radius, and then we can sketch a picture using those. We'll now get into some practice.